Welcome to the Introduction to Transfer Pricing. This is a series of short videos that we put together covering the materials that we usually teach in transfer pricing fundamentals. This video is going to talk about some of the transfer pricing methods, and in fact it's the second video in our series of videos about the comparable uncontrolled price method. In our first example, we walked through searching for a comparable uncontrolled price that would be highly comparable, meaning we had matched up a TV search based upon the size of the TV, the resolution, and features like built-in Wi-Fi and 3D capabilities. If you remember, we found quite a few prices on TVs that were being sold between unrelated parties, and we determined that the interquartile range would have been probably from somewhere between 1100 and 1200, and hopefully our tested party would have fallen within this range and it would have been a very defensible position. I want to talk now about the case of what happens when you observe comparable uncontrolled prices where they might not be quite as comparable as you would have expected. In this case, you can still potentially use these, but you'll need to be making adjustments to improve the comparability of the observed transactions to the controlled transaction that is your tested party. So in this case, I'm going to use an example using used cars, because I like using real data. I think it makes the world of examples much more compelling. So how does this whole story start? Let's suppose that I'm looking for a comparable uncontrolled price for a used 2010 VW Beetle. Okay, so we've got something very specific. The year the car made, the make and model of the car. Let's take that into account. And I went out and I did a search from a website that has people selling cars, and I looked for all of the VW Beetles within 50 miles of my zip code. Okay, so that's now I've also controlled, therefore, for the location effect that this might have an important impact on price. And I looked at this set, and here's what was downloaded. I just said, give me all of the Beetles that were out there. And the key points. First, most important point coming up, is that there are actually no 2010 cars for sale. Okay, that makes for a bit of a challenge. What if I'm trying to sell my VW Beetle to my younger brother? That's going to be a literal related party transaction. But now I can't go out and look up and see what that price would be. The tax man might be upset with me. So in that case, we're going to look at this and we get even greater scrutiny. We see not only are there no 2010s, there are no 2009s, and there are no 2011 cars for sale. Okay, what do we do? Many would see this as a problem where they would stop the investigation of using a cup. They'd say, it can't be the best method, I can't observe a comparable, I'm going to move on to some other method. But frankly, this isn't an issue of not comparability, it's an issue simply of making the right adjustments. What we're going to do here is ask, how would we make that adjustment? And what we're going to do is we ran a regression analysis, and from that regression analysis we showed that nearly all of the variation in pricing on cars could be explained by the age of the car. So on this next slide, what I've got here is using the results of that regression analysis, we determined that a car's price falls by about $1,414 per year. Using that information, we took the price that was quoted in the marketplace for each car for sale and adjusted it by the number of years difference from the target year, our comparable year, which is the 2010, and a per year adjustment. So to read the top line, you see that a 2013 VW Beetle was being offered for sale for $20,815. But if we deduct from that 3 years times the adjustment per year of 1414, we find out that the adjusted price, if you were trying to come up with a reference point for a 2010 car, would be $16,573. So it's that adjustment per year that we can use to really improve this reliability of the data we have observed. Now, we're also going to generally use the interquartile range. So we're going to take all of these observations and then adjust them, look at the interquartile range of that adjustment down here, and we see that our interquartile range is from $14,075.50 to $16,815.50. So you can see we've really narrowed the range down a good bit because we actually observed some of these cars for sale that were down in the, before we made any adjustment whatsoever, that the lowest car was at $3,400 and the highest car was up at $2,400. So that would have been an incredibly wide range. If we now make these adjustments, we've really improved the comparability quite a bit. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed this video and enjoy the other videos in this series.